Hello everyone, hope you are doing good. So this video is a continuation of my previous video. In that video, I spoke about several theories that come under psychodynamic approach and humanistic approach. So from this video, I'm going to talk about several other theories that come under trait approach and social cognitive approach. So let's get started. Trait approach. So what are these traits? Traits are consistent personality characteristics and behaviors displayed in different situations. Trait theory seeks to explain in a straightforward way the consistencies in individuals' behavior. So first we'll see Gordon-Allport theory. Gordon-Allport stated that there are three kinds of traits, which he mentioned as cardinal trait, central trait, and secondary trait. So first we'll see what is this cardinal trait. Cardinal trait is a single characteristic that directs most of a person's activity. Traits which are dominant in the personality and has a strong influence on behavior. For example, a totally selfless woman may direct all her energy toward humanitarian activity, or an intensely power-hungry person may be driven by an all-consuming need for control. Then we have central traits, which we can describe as 5 to 10 traits in a personality which describes the individual. So, individuals' major characteristics such as honesty and sociability. And then we have secondary trait. It is less important personality traits that do not affect behavior as much as central and cardinal traits do. For example, a reluctance to eat meat and a love of modern art. Now let's see Hans Eysenck's theory. Eysenck mentioned about hierarchy of traits, which he stated that there are 4 types: specific response, habitual response, personality trait, and personality type. Now let's see what are these hierarchy of traits. First we have specific response, which means observation of individual behavior. For example, how a person extends a hand upon meeting someone new. And then we have habitual response, the way someone would usually behave in a situation. For example, the way someone is behaving in a party. Then we have personality trait, which is the conclusion reached after adding up the specific and habitual response. For example, having a group type leisure time. Then we have personality type, similar personality traits that are combined result in a specific personality type. For example, sociability. Moving on, Hans Eysenck's pen model. He stated that there are 3 factors: extraversion, neuroticism, and psychoticism. So let's see what is extraversion. Extraversion is a measure of the trait sociability, with introversions on the other hand. So extroverts are individuals with an outgoing nature, sociable, and likes excitement, focuses more on the external reality. Introverts are individuals are quiet and focuses more on the internal reality. So the second trait is neuroticism. Neurotics are defined as emotionally unstable individuals. So they have high levels of fear and anxiety, that is more than required for the situation. Also, they have phobias of people, situations, and objects. They show impulsive and obsessional symptoms. Some of the traits that make up neuroticism can be as tense, anxious, and irrational. Third type of trait is psychoticism. Psychotics are the most severe end of psychopathology, who exhibits being cruel, hostile, insensitive, and inhuman towards others. Traits that form psychoticism are aggressive, cold, unempathetic, creative, etc. So despite all the negative traits, they tend to be creative, and also being egocentric makes them put themselves first, focusing on their goal, and having a tough mind makes them work towards their goal regardless of the situation, and being unempathetic aids in not being affected by opinions or problems of others. Moving on with the fourth approach, social cognitive perspective. Under social cognitive perspective, we are going to talk about learning theories. So first we'll see what do we mean by learning. Learning means any process through which experience at one time can alter an individual's behavior at a future time. Experience means any effects of the environment that are mediated by the individual's sensory system. For example, vision, hearing, touch, etc. Behavior at a future time means any subsequent behavior that is not a part of the individual's immediate response to the sensory stimulation during the learning experience. For example, if I make a clicking sound just before flashing a bright light into your eyes, your immediate response to the click or to the light, such as blinking, does not exemplify learning, but your increased tendency to blink to the click alone the next time I present that sound does exemplify learning. So when we are talking about learning theories, behavioral theorists view personality as a collection of responses that are tied to various stimulus situations. They focus on personality development and how children's responses are shaped by classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning. In the learning theories, first we'll talk about Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning. Ivan Pavlov was the personification of the dedicated scientist. By the time of his most famous research on classical conditioning, he was in his 50s and had already earned a Nobel Prize for studies of the reflexes involved in digestion. Pavlov's initial discovery of what we now call classical conditioning emerged from his earlier studies of digestive reflexes in dogs. Classical condition may explain how people acquire particular emotional responses such as anxiety or phobia. Classical conditioning is a type of learning in which a neutral stimulus acquires the capacity to evoke a response that was originally evoked by another stimulus. So we'll try to understand this through an example. So before conditioning, you present food to a dog and dog starts salivating. So food becomes unconditional stimulus and salivation becomes unconditional response. So why does this dog salivate? Because dog sees the food and because of the smell of the food. And then without presenting the food, you just whistle. Now there's no response from the dog. Dog doesn't salivate. Dog says, why is this man whistling? And during conditioning, along with the food, you whistle. Now again, dog starts salivating. After conditioning, you don't give food, but you just whistle and dog salivates. So after conditioning, bell becomes the conditioned stimulus and salivation becomes conditional response. So next time when you want to give food to the dog, you just don't have to present food. When you whistle, dog knows, okay, this is the time for his meal. So that's what classical conditioning is all about. Of course, classical conditioning is not limited to salivary responses. Researchers have shown this in hundreds of laboratory experiments, and you have experienced countless examples of such conditioning in your everyday life. So we'll say the sound of a dentist drill may elicit a conditioned cringing response because of its previous pairing with the pain. And then the mere smell of coffee may help wake you up because of its previous pairing with coffee's effects. And also the sight of the toilet when you enter a bathroom to comb your hair may elicit a previously unfelt urge to urinate due to previous pairing of that sight with urge. And now we'll look at the second learning theory, B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning. The psychologist who did the most to extend and popularize the law of effect for more than half a century was Boris Frederick Skinner. Operant conditioning is a form of learning in which voluntary responses come to be controlled by their consequences. Skinner proposed the term reinforcer as a replacement for such words as satisfaction and reward. Reinforcers tend to cause organisms to repeat the behaviors that precede them, and unfavorable consequences, called punishers, which tend to discourage behavior. So we have four terms here: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Positive reinforcement is a response which is followed by a pleasant stimulus. For example, praising the child for doing his homework. Negative reinforcement is a response which is followed by the removal of an unpleasant stimulus. For example, Bob doing the dishes in order to stop his mother's nagging. Positive punishment is a response followed by an unpleasant stimulus. For example, a child touching a hot stove and feels pain. Negative punishment is a response which is followed by the removal of a pleasant stimulus. For example, Anne fights with his brother, so her favorite toy is taken away. Now let's talk about the third learning theory, Albert Bandura's social learning theory. Albert Bandura, the psychologist, who over the years has most vigorously studied observational learning in humans, has emphasized that people observe others to learn not just specific motor skills, such as driving a car or performing surgery, but also more general modes or styles of behaving. Social learning occurs when an organism's responding is influenced by the observation of others who are called models. Bandura demonstrated both of these functions of observational learning, acquiring specific actions and learning general styles of behavior in experiments with kindergarten children. In one experiment, one group of children observed an adult behaving very aggressively toward a large inflated Bobo doll. The aggression included specific verbal insults and such physical acts as banging the doll with a mallet, hurling it down, kicking it, and bombarding it with balls. A second group watched the adult model behave in a gentle manner toward the doll, and third group was not shown any model. Later, when each child was allowed to play in the room with a variety of toys, including the Bobo doll, those in the first group behaved more aggressively, and those in the second group behaved more gently than those in the third group. The children in the first group not only mimicked many of the aggressive actions that they had observed in the model, but also improvised many new aggressive actions of their own and directed them toward other toys as well as toward the Bobo doll. Bandura's theory of observational learning is an explicitly cognitive one. Bandura proposes that people actively observe the behavior of other people to gain knowledge about the kinds of things that people do and use that knowledge in situations where it is useful. He also developed methods of therapy in which people overcome fear by watching other people engage in the fear activity, such as handling snakes. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you need any help regarding notes and movements, please do contact me via cascade.psychology@gmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe Cascade Psychology. So watch my next video on psychological disorders. Thank you.